Denise. Denise. It's Denise. It's Denise. It's Denise. Denise. It's a podcast party. It's a podcast party. It's a podcast party.
I gotta say, I feel like we're besties now after this. What's up, guys? It's Denise Salcedo. Everyone, what is up? Welcome to Speak Now Pro Wrestling. I'm your host, Denise Salcedo. Welcome to this bonus stream where today we are going to be recapping, reviewing, / talking about one of the craziest shows that we have seen in a very long time, and that is the Wrld on GCW, Game Changer Wrestling's a big show at the Hammerstein Ballroom, which had a very, very stacked and loaded card. We have so much to get into here today, but before we do, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce my very good friend, my guest for today. He's a huge fan of GCW, literally is at all the shows. We see each other all the time at the shows. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ESPN's very own combat sports reporter, Marc Raimondi. What's up, Marc?
Hey, Denise. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing pretty awesome. I feel like the last hour and like 3-4 hours, however long the show was, we're kind of absolutely nuts, man. I think that to kind of, seeing the GCW show, I already knew based on the card that things were going to be crazy, but I think things ended up being a lot crazier than I might have imagined. So, Marc, I kind of want to start off with that. Overall, how did you feel about today's show?
Whew, there's a lot to digest, Denise. There were a lot of surprises. There were a lot of legends returning. There were a lot of things that people did not anticipate. It was a really fun show, very entertaining show. I did think that it felt to me like they were really rushing toward the end, and I'm not sure if they had to hit like a pay-per-view time limit or something. I figured that's what it was, but it did seem like the last couple of matches were a little shorter than they could have or should have been. That was definitely an observation that I had, but I still was very entertained by the whole show as the sum.
I think I agree with you. As the whole of the show, I thought that there was a lot of different stuff. Obviously, there were some matches, and obviously we're gonna get into all of this. But there were some matches where I was like, "Man, this is super great." There were others where I was like, "Oh no, this did not go the way that I think they might have wanted it to go." And then as for the main event, I was very, very. I don't know. I completely forgot that there might have been a time that they got to get out of here. I think I'm so used to if you need to go over those extra couple of minutes, you go over those couple extra minutes. So for me, I was kind of when the finish came, when the ending happened, it was so abrupt that instantly I was like, oh no. And I looked at the clock and we got I think 2 minutes left till the top of the next hour. And I'm thinking, all right, they were either, at first I thought they were it was a botch or something. And then when I looked at the clock, I thought, all right, this is definitely, something they had a hard out to get out at a certain time, which you just forget. But we are going to go ahead and talk about the show in a nice chronological format. We're going to start at the top of the main card and kind of work our way through and kind of talk about the crazy things that happened on the show. If you didn't watch the show, I think you're going to be very surprised at some of the outcomes and things that happened. If you did watch the show, well, then all the things we have to cover. So let's get right into it. Also, everybody, if you are watching here, please feel free to send in your thoughts, send in your comments, send in your questions. I will be reading super chats. If you do send in a super chat, they really much, they help us out here on the show. So if you do send in a super chat, not only do you get your thoughts, questions, or statements read on this stream, but also you do help us out here on this show. So I do look forward to reading some of your super chats here today. But let's go ahead and get started. We actually have our first super chat, and this one is from Dan V 900. Dan V was actually not really that big of a fan of the show. Dan V says it was a rough show. The crowd was poorly mic'd. I was incredibly disappointed. The 6-man tag was really good, though, compared to Terminus with those matches. I think that, obviously the production I thought was, it's not on the same level, that you would get from WWE or AEW, but it wasn't, there were some, production errors there, but I think I kind of, I don't know, I think I was sort of not saying I expected it, but it's like I wasn't expecting the production that we get from like, WWE or AEW. So Marc Raimondi, do you have any thoughts on that kind of kicking us off?
I mean, the production was better on this show than most GCW shows. I'll say that. My expectations were not very high for the production. It's still independent wrestling, so I did not have any, delusions of grandeur for, for how the show was going to look or sound. Of course, there were going to be errors. I mean, if you're a GCW fan, I think that's kind of baked into the experience. There's going to be some production issues. I didn't really have a huge problem with it personally.
Yeah, and it's funny too is that I think you're right on the nose there, where I think the production was probably a little bit better than some of the other shows. So I do think like if you were new to GCW, then you probably if you were expecting something else, I think then that may have been a little bit of a drawback for you. But I think for the most part, like I think it was a lot better than some of the stuff that we're used to getting. But let's go ahead and jump right into this. Once again, guys, if you want to get your question, comment, or statement, send in a super chat. There's lots of things to talk about, and what's crazy. Mark, is that we're going to kind of get started with what I think was kind of the most OMG match of the night. And by that, I mean, there were a lot of things that happened here that kind of had me on the edge of my seat in the sense where my anxiety levels were very, very high. And I think you know what I'm talking about. The opening match of the night, which was the Grab the Brass Ring ladder match, which featured Jordan Oliver, Tony Deppen, Jimmy Lloyd, Alex Colon, G-Raver, PCO, and AJ Gray, who was added into this match. 7 guys, what we had here, but this match, unfortunately, there were a lot of missed moments, a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of scary spots during this because some of the spots didn't necessarily turn out the way that I think they expected. There was a few moments when I thought, oh my God, this person is dead. This is crazy. So let's kind of go ahead and talk a little bit about what actually happened. And then we'll kind of get into, our thoughts and what parts we totally freaked out about. But I think some of the crazy parts that we do really need to talk about here is Jordan Oliver taking a package pile driver from PCO straight onto the ladder and literally the ladder bending. Mark, I see your face. How did you feel during this?
Yeah, I thought Jordan Oliver was in a lot of trouble on that spot. I think and I'm certainly I'm certainly no worker, but I think that the idea was to try to get his head into a place in the ladder where there was, the opening in between the rungs of the ladder. Didn't quite work out that way. His head went splat. PCO spiked Oliver right on one of the rungs of the ladder. And yes, like you said, Denise, the ladder bent. And I thought that Jordan Oliver was pretty badly hurt. Turned out that he came back and he wrestled the rest of the match. But I guess when you're 22 years old or whatever Jordan Oliver is, you can kind of shake that off. But he's probably feeling that right now, and he'll probably be feeling that for maybe forever. He might be feeling that move forever.
Dude, I think the second that moment happened and then they panned out because you got like an aerial view of the ring, I was like, where's Jordan? Where's Jordan?
Yeah.
Let me see how he's doing. Like,
Yeah.
I need to see that he's moving and active. And when he came back into the match, I was like, oh my God, thank the Lord, But let's go ahead and continue because after this, we had a crazy spot here. And this was, okay, so G-Raver sets up Alex Colon. He has him literally in between 2 chairs. He has a ladder on top of those 2 chairs. So he's kind of tucked in, kind of like in his own little cave. And then G-Raver goes up to the top of another ladder, and he's kind of about, he's about to do something onto Alex Colon. And instead, he kind of has like this wobbling moment where he's like, losing his balance. I thought that was pretty, just one of those moments where I just thought, oh my God, this is not going to go well. So that was another moment where I kind of felt like on the edge of my seat. But we did get a really awesome spot where Jimmy Lloyd did a really awesome he did an awesome like a power bomb, like literally right onto the ladder, which was pretty cool. We also saw AJ Gray accidentally slip on a ladder, which I pretty much thought that he died, Mark. Like during this, I was like, Jesus Christ. How did you feel about these moments during this match?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad when the match was over, I was really glad that it didn't seem like anyone got seriously hurt, because that was my feeling throughout that match. Yeah, that move that you mentioned with AJ Gray, he was on this gigantic ladder. It was actually standing outside the ring, but it was so tall that it was completely over the post and much taller than the ring. I mean, probably taller than the ladders that were actually in the ring at the time. And he climbed to the top, and I guess he's supposed to do some kind of a splash onto the guy in the ring from the ladder outside the ring, and he did not. He missed, and he landed on the ladder that was in the ring, another ladder. Definitely a huge mess. My favorite move in that match was PCO's Doomsday Device with the ladder. That was pretty insane. Yeah, I mean, it was a cluster F. I mean, let's just lay it all out there. But I mean, that's part of the charm of GCW. Like, you're gonna have matches that are just a complete train wreck. This was definitely it. There were some exciting moments. There were some dangerous moments. I think if you ask most of the guys in the match, they'd probably say we wish that it went a little bit cleaner, a little smoother. Unfortunately, it did not. I didn't expect AJ Gray to win the match because he wasn't even supposed to be in the match in the first place. He was supposed to wrestle Eddie Kingston on the show, but of course Eddie Kingston is dealing with a broken orbital from an AEW match with Joey Janela, ironically enough. But yeah, I mean, it was a complete train wreck, Denise. I mean, I don't even know if I can curse on this.
You can. I think you're okay.
I don't know if I curse, period. But it was an S show, Denise. It was an S show, this match.
I was like, I forgot that like you might actually come in here and be like, I can't curse, Denise. Like, I'm representing ESPN, and I'm like, go curse, have a blast. But you do you, Mark. But
well, I mean, we know each other in real life, and you know that I curse a whole lot.
Yeah,
in real life.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
I can't on the air because the mouse is watching always. So.
The boss, the mouse, is watching.
That's
but
right.
Here's the thing about this opening match is that, there were a lot of botches, a lot of scary moments, things that didn't go right. And we did see AJ Gray winning this. And here's my question to you, though, is you mentioned that spot that you really liked from PCO. To me, PCO was really the standout during this match. And then obviously it's not just because he goes out there and he does crazy stuff, but I thought he was the one that he didn't really have any moments where obviously you're like, oh my God, you're so nervous because you know how old he is and all of that. But I thought if anything, all of the best parts were PCO. But even with that being said, I kind of felt that even though this was a train wreck, like you said, it was entertaining to watch. It was so entertaining. I was on the edge of my seat, like the whole entire time. But for you, do you think that PCO was a standout in this match, or was there anybody else that you were like, damn, this guy was so good?
Yeah, he had probably the moves that were. I mean, it's actually kind of crazy to say because whenever I watch a PCO match, I feel like my heart is in my throat because the man is in his mid-50s and he's doing all this stuff. But he actually kept himself pretty safe, and the other guys in the match kept him pretty safe. He almost ended the very short and young life of Jordan Oliver on that spot with the ladder, the pile driver. For once, it was actually him almost hurting someone else, not himself. So I'm not sure if that's progress. I'm not sure where that is, but it was I mean, I was entertained by the match. It was certainly not the best ladder match I've seen. Definitely could have been better. But I was still entertained by the match.
Yeah, exactly. And I will mention this because I wrote this down in my notes. I was thinking about this because I was trying to place people like in terms of like ages and doing some Google searches and all of that. And it's kind of crazy when you think about this because PCO is only 2 years younger than The Undertaker. Only 2 years younger. Like, that is insane. Like, when you start to think about, like, unfortunately, obviously Taker had like this really like crazy, insane schedule and all of this. But when you think about the fact that he's only 2 years younger and he's going out there doing these things, and then you, unfortunately, poor, Taker's like, you've seen like any of his documentaries, it's just insane. But it was one of the things that, like, while I was watching this match, like, I couldn't help but to have in the back of my mind during this. But we do have a super chat from Juan Rodarte. Thank you so much to Juan, who says, GCW is not for everyone. My first show, I really liked it. This was interesting, Mark. I don't know how many people you saw, but on social media, I saw a lot of people that were coming in to watch GCW for the very first time. And that was one of the things where I was like, if this is your first time watching GCW, like, what are you expecting? Like what's going through your minds right now?
Yeah, it's. I was thinking the same thing actually when I was watching the show because this seems like it would be an entry point for a lot of new fans to come into GCW. I think Juan is right. I think it is not for everyone. That is 100% true. But I mean, it's like it's car crash wrestling in many ways, and I enjoy it a lot. But I know that other people will not like it, and that's okay too. And I do think if you are coming into GCW for the first time in this show, it was a fairly decent representative of what GCW is. But I would even say that I hesitate to say that I've seen better GCW shows, but I've definitely seen better GCW matches individually than some of the ones that were on this show. Not a ton of the matches actually stood out individually for me. There were a lot of cool moments. There were a lot of solid matches, but I feel like even last week's show, like in Chicago, there were matches that I felt like they were better than some of the matches that were on tonight's show.
Right,
And
I completely
I
agree
think
with
they
you.
just packed it, Denise. I think they, maybe it's a little bit too packed. It was 10 matches, 2 on the pre-show, 8 on the main show. I think that maybe you cut 1 or 2 matches and you kind of really hone in on the matches that were the most important and give them the time they need to breathe. It almost felt like All In a sense, where remember All In where they had to go home like really quickly into the main event and they didn't get a chance to have that amazing trios match in the main event. This was a little bit more abrupt than even All In, but I thought that they could have let their stuff breathe a little bit more by maybe taking a match or 2 out. Not that I was not every match was entertaining in its own way, but I thought really hone in on those top matches better.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think one of those things, and obviously now knowing in hindsight how the show actually ended, there were certain matches that I think I would have definitely cut the time in. And we'll talk about those when we get there. But this is the one match that, Mark, I will fight you. I will fight you so hard if you have anything bad to say about this match. Just kidding. Say what you want. But no, for reals, I freaking loved this match. This was match of the night for me. And that was Team Gringo, which was Gringo, Loco, Arez, and Demonic Flamita versus Team Bandido, Laredo Kid, Bandido, and ASF. Mark, I freaking love this match. This was match of the night for me. I think that this one, in terms of like things that I have seen, you kind of mentioned saying like, the show is entertaining, but you've seen better matches. I think that I would put this match up against some of my other favorite GCW matches because I really do think that this was the match that I think brought the crowd back, because I think that even though the first match was very entertaining, I think that some of the botches did kind of get the crowd a little bit like, ooh, like what's happening here? This is not going, the way we want it to go, right? But this match, I think, brought the crowd back in that sense, where people were like, dude, this is freaking cool. And they did some classic lucha spots during this match. They did La Estrella, which was really cool. They did the chicken wing, they did a double stack chicken fights, which were very exciting to see. So when you see stuff like that, and then on top of that, you get the fast-paced lucha style, I just really think that they did a phenomenal job in this match. So, Mark, how did you feel about this? And did you like it, I think, as much as I did?
Absolutely. This match was 100% the match of the night for me. Nothing really even came close. Not only that, I think that I know it's very early in 2022, but I think that at the end of the year, this is a match that we'll still remember. That was a classic match for me, a classic trios match, lucha libre, some spots that I've never seen before in my life. Like you said, the chicken fight spot where ASF did a Canadian destroyer off the shoulders of 2 men onto Arez. I mean, that was completely insane, death-defying. And then there was the one amazing spot that I actually tweeted a GIF of, where Arez and Flamita did a dueling, like synchronized moonsault off the top rope to the floor. But Arez ran in, and it was a beautiful move. There were so many cool things in this match. Bandido had a crazy dive. There was the 2 Romero specials on the floor where someone, I forget who it was, who came off with the senton. I have it written down here. It was Gringo Loco who came on the dive with the 2 guys on the Romero special.
Bandido, oh yeah, that was good. Yeah,
that was insane. I'm not sure if I've seen that before. There was the Laredo fly from Laredo Kid onto Arez to the outside onto the group of guys. I mean, it was just an insane match. Also, I want to give a shout out to ASF. I mean, underrated. Of all the guys in the match, the Bandidos, the Laredo Kids, these are guys that are, really well known. They're champions in other organizations. They're big in Mexico. But ASF, to me, was one of the highlights of this entire match. Small dude, but he can really freaking go. And if he has a good base, I mean, there's the opportunities are endless for him to do some really, really, really cool stuff.
Dude, I'm so glad. Okay, two things that you mentioned that. First of all, I agree with you and all of the moves that you mentioned where I was like, dude, those were freaking awesome. And when you mentioned those synchronized moonsaults that happened during this match, it almost looked like I don't know how to explain it, but you know, like when you light a firework and you just see both ends go out, that's exactly what I saw during that spot. It was so freaking cool. But I do want to also put over ASF because he looked very crisp in this match. And it's true, when you're in there with guys like Flamita and Bandido who are, freaking great at what they do. And then, ASF, I've been seeing him now and, on multiple shows. I've gotten to work with him multiple shows. And it's so crazy because kind of seeing him tonight, I feel like I saw a different version of ASF that I hadn't seen before, even on a bunch of other shows that I've seen him. I've seen him now wrestle and multiple times at GCW, LA Fights, etc. I've seen him go at it, but I think today was really like this breakout performance for him. Like he looked really good where I think ASF now needs to be part of the conversation, especially after today's match. But the person that I also want to put over during this is Gringo Loco, because he obviously he's not going to be going there doing all these crazy stuff, right? Like he had some great moments, one of which you mentioned. But the reason why he's so, why I want to put him over during this really is because he is such a great base. And that's the reason why he's in these matches and why these lucha guys like to work with him. And you saw it multiple times during this match where he was the base for so many of these different moments. And that to me was, something that I think that you really have to, sort of put over and whatnot.
100%. And you need someone like that in one of those matches because you have a lot of guys who are going to do high flying. You need a Gringo Loco that he's like the glue of the match. He's almost like and I maybe not quite at the same level, but like a Black Taurus in AAA, who made Cain Velasquez look so incredibly good the times where Cain wrestled there, and he's continuing on now with AAA. But Gringo Loco is kind of the same way. He's kind of like the Chicago American version of Black Taurus. Big guy, great base, but also has his own slick high flying moveset too. That's really impressive. So yeah, he's definitely an underrated guy, unsung guy. I would like to see more of him. The shows out here in LA and ASF too. Like bring that guy back. I want to see more of him.
Dude, hell yeah. So honestly, if you're just watching the post show and you didn't see this actual show, I would say that this is the match where I'm like, you would watch it and you're going to see some stuff that you may not have seen before, or you're going to see stuff that you've seen before, but damn, it still feels good to see again. And I think especially that Canadian Destroyer off of the freaking double stag chicken fights. I mean, dude, it looked like a freaking mountain peak. I don't know, a sundae with a cherry on top, except the cherry is flipping over. It was absolutely nuts. Guys, if you are watching, friendly reminder, if you want to get your thoughts, your questions, your statements, whatever, right on the stream, send in a super chat and I will be reading those. We actually have another one here from Dan V 900 who says, I love the Hall of Fame last night. It didn't help that Southeast First was on Friday night where the much smaller crowd came across as much louder, even though it's not the case from the clips in person tonight. Thank you so much to Dan V 900 for also sending in the super chat. I really appreciate it. We also have another one from Robert Anderson who says, super chat for Gringo Loco. He's a top 5 Chicago indie performer. Love seeing him at Warrior Wrestling. Thank you so much to Robert. And I do think that, yeah, like we just put over Gringo Loco, and I think it's definitely well deserved here. This was the best match of the night, hands down. My favorite thing that happened.
No argument from me there. And in fact, it reminded me of like trios matches from like, back in the day. ROH had some amazing trios matches in like the mid 2000s. It was kind of like an homage to some of those back in the day. Even like some of the, the luchador trios matches in WCW, back in the day on Nitro. It was kind of like a throwback to that stuff.
It was nice. And we need this like immediately. I mean, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because immediately I tweeted, I was like, this is why we need more lucha on TV. Like, I hate to, like, I don't want to be, well, actually, I do want to be this person. Put more lucha on your damn TV shows. Like, this is why. It's good shit. By the way, Gringo Loco did end up getting the win for his team. He won with the cradle pile driver that he hit on ASF, getting the win for Team Gringo. But good stuff, man. I would give this match like a million stars. All right. All right. Let's get into this next one because this was not a match that we were expecting to see. But due to the fact that Jonathan Gresham was essentially taken out of this match due to COVID protocol, we did not get the Ring of Honor World Championship defended on tonight's show, which was unfortunate because a lot of people were really looking forward to this match. But instead, we got a replacement. And the match ended up being Blake Christian versus Lio Rush. So first and foremost, Mark, how did you feel about, Jonathan Gresham essentially being not being able to take part in this show tonight due to COVID protocols and his replacement being Lio Rush?
Certainly unfortunate for Jonathan Gresham not to be there. That was a match that I was looking forward to against Blake Christian, who I think has made a lot of improvements in his game since being in WWE. He's much more of a polished product now than he was pre-WWE in GCW. So I was looking forward to that match, that clash of styles, Gresham's technical acumen against Blake Christian's high flying, his evolving high flying, because he is able to do more things now. But look, I mean, I'm a big Lio Rush fan, so I was not totally upset by that replacement, and I was kind of bummed out when I saw that Lio Rush was not in the ladder match, like he was supposed to be. So I was like, oh man, Lio is not at the show, but he replaced Gresham, and I thought him and Blake Christian had a pretty darn good match. That was a good match. Thought it could have actually gone longer. That's one of the matches that I could have, I would not have minded seeing more of. I don't have the exact time on that match, Denise, but I enjoyed it, and I thought they could have gone longer. But for what they did put out, I was pretty impressed. I like that.
Yeah, I think it was one of the better matches of the night as well. The only thing for me that I think, like you mentioned, I'm a big fan of Lio Rush too. I like his work, like what he does in the ring, all of that. But I think for me, it was kind of hard for me to get into this match at the start because I was so pumped off of the last match that we saw that I think it was taking me a second to really get invested into this match here. And I think that the way that they started this match didn't necessarily grab my attention right off the bat. It wasn't really until about midway. And you mentioned that this match, you kind of felt that it needed to go longer. And I have to agree with you because I don't ever think that this match ever hit a peak. It never hit its peak where you're like, oh shoot, this is a bomb ass match. This to me was a good match, but I'm probably not going to remember it in a couple of weeks or so, and that's not the match that is going to necessarily stay with me here. There were some awesome moments. I really feel like we need to put over some of the spots that were done here. Blake hitting the Spanish Fly followed by the Springboard 450. I thought was really cool. The Poison Rana from Lio Rush looked really nice. Really nice frog splash from Lio Rush as well. That was really good. One of my favorite portions was also Blake doing the Fosbury flop into the tombstone on the outside of the ring. That was a really awesome moment during this. And then obviously him coming in with the win with the 450 double stomp. So it had all the ingredients, I think, of a really awesome match. But I think, had it gone an extra few couple of minutes, I think it would have hit its peak, and then we would have had a really nice, and really nice just leaning up into the finish and a nice little, I don't know, get you really pumped for it sort of thing. It felt like it was missing just one tiny thing there.
Yeah, it felt like it didn't really get out of second gear. And that's I felt that way about several of the matches on the card. I have an issue with the Blake Christian Fosbury flop into another move spot that he does. And don't get me wrong, I like Blake Christian. I think he's phenomenal athlete, and I think that his future is extremely bright. But you do an amazing, high flying move, and then you transition right into a move that you could have just done when you were on the floor already. Why do you need to do the Fosbury flop into a tombstone or the Fosbury flop into the inverted DDT like he does sometimes on the floor? Why not just go out there and just do that move? What enhances that move? I don't feel like the Fosbury flop enhances it because he stops and then does the move. It isn't like he does it in one motion, because that would be very difficult. I'm not saying he should do that either, but that kind of takes me out of it sometimes. Although the tombstone on the floor was a pretty great spot, even outside of the Fosbury flop into it. I would have been fine with him just doing the tombstone on the floor. I don't think you need to do the Fosbury flop too. You can do the Fosbury flop, land on the guy, and then go to the move. So the Fosbury flop actually has some meaning other than just kind of getting behind the guy. It just doesn't. It kind of takes me out of it a little bit. The logic is just not there for me.
I get what you mean because it's kind of like they hit the brakes there. Like he's going full speed. He does the Fosbury flop. Oh, it's so cool. Pause. All right, now we're going to get into this, tombstone, and
Right.
then we're going to do this. So it is one of those things where like you get like this really nice speed going, and then there's like this dramatic pause, and it's like, oh, wait, now we're going into this. So I get what you mean by that. Like I still thought, like, I think just like the sequence, I think just like the lead up into it, the Fosbury flop itself, and, then going into it, I was like, all right, well, this is not where I thought we were going, but cool. I'm still, I'm still with it. But I totally get what you mean by this. Like, yeah, 100%. We ended up seeing Blake Christian get the win with the 450 double stomp for the finish. That was pretty much it. Like, that's all I kind of want to add about that one. But let's go ahead and continue on because this is where things kind of go nuts. All right, Mark. And please, chat, live viewers, listeners, everybody, bear with me here because a lot went down and I'm going to do my best to kind of go through everything. Mark, this kind of felt like, okay, we mentioned things that probably should have been trimmed down so that main event could have been longer. I think that as fun and as wild as the everything that Matt Cardona and Joey Janela did, I do think that it should have been maybe trimmed down just a little bit so that maybe we could have enjoyed that main event a lot more. But let's get right into this. All right. So first of all, we do got a super chat from Christian J. Thank you so much to Christian who says, hey, Denise, did you see my X-Pac tweet, Anime Fan 442? I don't know if I saw it, but thank you so much for letting me know. I will be on the lookout for it. If you just tag me again or whatever, if you tag me, then I'll see it. It just takes a few times because my Twitter timeline's a little bit of a mess. But thank you so much to Christian J for sending in this super chat. Once again, guys, you could send in a super chat and get your comment read on this show. But let's get into this. All right, Matt Cardona, Joey Janela. First, let's talk about the build to this because I think the build to this was pretty fun, man. You got Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green who just got married. Matt Cardona's been pissing off the fans at GCW for a bit now, but they're
the GCW universe, Denise. Make sure you get that right.
Exactly. Thank you. He's been pissing off the GCW universe for a bit now, and Chelsea Green and him just got married, but then Joey Janela sends them these photos of him and Chelsea being together. Obviously, this pisses him off, and I really like the little like brawl fight that they did at the storage facility. That was pretty interesting. But anyways, we're leading into this match, and let's kind of talk about first the entrance. I think there's a lot to unpack here in just the entrance with Cardona and Chelsea Green. We have Cardona coming out to the Sandman entrance. We got the giant "If Cardona wins, we riot" banner up on the the building on the barricades. Chelsea has the Chelsea 469 t-shirt. He has Matt Cardona has a "Fuck McFoley" written on his red flannel. He literally has a moment where he spits in the face of a fan who gets in his face. Spits in his face immediately after makes out with Chelsea Green. Then he cuts a promo on Joey Janela where he says, "I'm going to end your career before Tony Khan can say you're fired." Just within itself with that, Mark, what were your thoughts on the entrance and every kind of detail that went into this?
I, like you, also enjoyed the lead up to this match. The homage to WrestleMania 8 lead up with the Ric Flair versus Macho Man, sending pictures in the mail and seeing Chelsea Green with Joey Janela. I thought that was it was not. I mean, obviously a lot of this is tongue in cheek, and it was fun. I liked it. The entrance. I mean, yeah, he came out to enter Sandman. Pretty sure that GCW doesn't have the licensing rights to that song, but it's okay. It's okay. We won't harp on that too much. Yeah, it was. I mean, I was cool. I was cool with the entrance. I thought it was entertaining. I thought Cardona's promo was good. I thought Chelsea Green. I think she's been doing a phenomenal job. Honestly, both of them have been really. I think they've really done a good job, like reinventing themselves on the indies here in GCW. The entrances I had no problem with. The match itself, well, it was an overbooked mess. Yes.
All right, let's get into this overbooking. All right, I'm going to
Yeah.
kind of hit everybody here with bullet points of what happened during this. All right, so pardon me if I missed
Yeah.
something here, but first of all, we get right into this. Okay, we got this match starts off hot, which is the way that it should, given the story. We have this moment where the fans, they have Matt Cardona's t-shirt, they rip it up, they throw it back into the ring. Chelsea Green is pissed off. We see Matt going for, he's about to hit Joey Janela with a chair shot, and Chelsea ends up stopping him and giving him a low blow. So you have this moment of holy shit, Chelsea Green just turned on Matt Cardona for like a split second, and this ended up sending Joey Janela. This was a setup for Joey Janela. First and foremost, before we move on, Mark, did you fall for that moment like I did?
Yeah, I guess I did. I mean, I really didn't know where things were going at that point, and they had teased that Joey was with Chelsea in those photos, and look, I'm not a Photoshop expert. Those look pretty legit to me, so I wasn't really sure. So I bit a little bit, yes.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. All right, so then right after this, this is where things kind of go a little bit, off the wall. We have Mark Sterling coming out, and he basically says that, Joey Janela cannot use the belt or he's disqualified. Okay. Then he says that he was asked to bring in a VIP special guest, and I'm like, all right, cool. Then we get Vince McMahon's music playing. And then somebody comes out with a Vince McMahon mask, and I'm thinking, who the hell is in that Vince McMahon mask? And then the mask comes off, and it's Vincent, who a lot of people know as Virgil. Mark, what did you think about this?
I don't know, man. I I didn't think this match needed all this stuff. I mean, it gets worse from here. I guess it was entertaining in some ways. I guess, it got some laughs, and that was the reason for it. But I mean, yeah, it wasn't doing a whole lot for me personally.
This was weird. Like I thought, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. Like I don't think I had the reaction that was intended when, we see, Vincent coming out. I'm thinking like, okay, I get it, but I didn't have the reaction that I think we were supposed to have. We do have a super chat from Jake Einator 722, who says, the only GCW I've seen before was a blood sport show, so I was coming in with fresh eyes, an absolute mess start to finish, but in an amusing way. Yeah, can't blame you. All right.
Fair.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. So then
it was definitely an entertaining mess. Not at the level of like a Triple Mania, not at the level of like a big AAA show where it's like, like 25% of the time you just have no idea what's going on, but it's fun. But it was kind of in the same vein.
I was thinking the same thing. I was almost going to tweet like, wait, when did I start watching? When did this show become, AAA? Like, what the hell is going on here?
I'm booking this. What is happening here?
Yeah. So this is where things go, even crazier. So then after this, we have out of nowhere, Hornswoggle comes out from under the ring, and he literally bites Joey Janela in the butt. Then afterwards, we get Sam Stackhouse. He comes out and he literally just beats Hornswoggle. Okay.
Why?
Then
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I didn't think that this really hit the mark for me, because I feel like if you're going to do the whole, big guy beats on the little guy, I want to see the little guy get killed, man. I didn't feel he got killed during this. Am I wrong here?
I mean, you're not wrong, but I mean, I'm not even as deep into it as you. I just didn't understand why this was even a thing. I mean, this match was like, I think it was trying to be like an ECW, like cluster F type of match where a million people interfere and it's like super overbooked. But at the end, like you kind of feel like, all right, that was fun. Instead, it was kind of like a WCW 2000 like cluster F where it was just like, what was all this for? I don't get it. Maybe it went over my head. I'm not sure.
It felt very much like it was intended to be this. Like, even though like we're coming out saying it was a clusterfuck, it was very much intended to be a clusterfuck, I think.
Yes.
So then after
the thing about it, and I don't, sorry to interrupt you,
no,
but the thing about
it.
I just didn't feel like I like both guys a lot. I like Janela and I like Cardona, and I think they could have had a really good match on their own merits with just you could have had a little bit of that in there. Didn't need the Sam Stackhouse and the Swoggle and we'll get to the rest.
No, I completely agree with you, honestly, completely. Because after this, then we have Marco Stunt coming out, and he ends up going out after Hornswoggle. Okay, cool. Like pop for Marco Stunt. Obviously, we haven't seen him in a while, etc. At this point, this is where I was really losing track of what was happening. Like I'm looking up and down, trying to type everything out. Okay, so this is a mess. Afterwards, we literally get Marco Stunt does a double stomp onto Hornswoggle, who's on top of a door. So that was a brutal spot. And then somebody, I think it might have been Joey Janela, somebody on the opposite side of the ring did a moonsault at the exact same time. And I'm like, shit, I'm trying to keep up with everything going on here.
He did an elbow drop onto Cardona from the post to the floor, and Cardona was on a table.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool spot. But the director they were doing two moves at the same time, and I felt like neither one of them really got highlighted.
Exactly. Like, I feel like you either see one or the other. Like, I feel like for me, I was more focusing on the double stomp because just like the way that it was framed on my television, like that's just where my eyes went. But like I knew something else was happening, but I'm like, shit, like, okay, let me try to get what I can get here. Then we got Chelsea Green gets involved here, and she ends up hitting Marco Stunt with the internet title. And then afterwards, she hits a Canadian Destroyer, which I thought was pretty cool, looked great. Then we see Chelsea go after Joey Janela. She hits him with the kendo stick. Janela ends up hitting Chelsea Green with a pile driver, gets her out of this match. And then we have a nod to Edge, to when Edge came out on ECW One Night Stand in 2006, spearing John Cena. We get a nod to that, but instead it's Brian Myers. He comes out with the all black motorcycle gear, spears Joey Janela through the door there, and so that was a nod to that. After this, we see Matt Cardona hit the Rough Rider and get the win here. And just when you're thinking, oh shit, everybody's gonna riot, you start to see all these things get thrown into the ring. And I'm thinking, my God, this is gonna get ugly, right? And then after this, you get the song, the Run DMC DX theme song, and you see X-Pac coming out. He comes out, he comes into the ring, hits the X Factor, hits the spinning heel kick on both Cardona and Brian Myers, hugs it out with Joey Janela. They celebrate. Jesus, there's a lot to unpack here, Mark. Where do we even begin? Thoughts on Brian Myers, thoughts on Matt Cardona getting the win, thoughts on X-Pac coming out, etc.
Wow. Okay, so look, I got the reference. It felt like a lot of this match was making references to other stuff. It was like a very inside baseball type of match, which if you've been watching wrestling for a long time, I can understand why you may find some of those things clever. But it felt just a little bit ham-fisted in some places. And Brian Myers, talented guy, he's not Edge. And even though it was a logical guy to help, his real life best friend Matt Cardona against Janela, it didn't quite probably get the pop that someone else would have gotten in that space. But seeing Sean Waltman back was awesome. I popped pretty hard for Sean Waltman. I thought that he looked like he was in incredible shape. I know that he recently got cleared to return to the ring. And I for one am extremely excited to see where he goes and what he does from here. If it's in GCW or where it might be, maybe starting in GCW and then going somewhere else after that. But that was cool. And maybe the storyline continues. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. But I would not mind watching Janela and Sean Waltman against Cardona and Myers. That could be a lot of fun.
I think that could be a lot of fun. And, obviously, Sean Waltman has been at pretty much like every single GCW show, like all the ones in LA that I've been to that have been ring announcing, that you were there too. I've seen him there at all the shows. He's been, watching the product, keeping up with the product. Obviously, he does, commentary for their sister show, LA Fight. So he is definitely somebody that is very familiar with the GCW brand and the GCW product, etc. So it was cool to see him in this spot. And I think that they also put him in in this spot too, to sort of obviously like this could go into something else now in the future, but also to sort of make sure that the whole, people getting upset over Matt Cardona winning didn't necessarily go too far, because as people, the second you heard, the music hit, you didn't see people throwing stuff out anymore into the ring. People were like, oh shit, it's X-Pac, let's pop here. And then, hey, let's go into, whatever else is going on. So they did kind of, protect themselves in that moment there. So I thought that was pretty effing cool. But I will say this, I don't think they needed the Hornswoggle stuff. I don't think they needed the Sam Stackhouse stuff. I think had they eliminated that, and even though I like Marco Stunt too, I think they should have eliminated that part too. The Hornswoggle stuff, Marco Stunt stuff, the Sam stuff, like all of that could have been taken out. They could have still included the stuff with, Chelsea Green, because that pertains to their story. Okay, cool. And then go into the finish, do the Brian Myers spot. Cool too, because like you mentioned, their real life friendship. Fine. And I don't necessarily think it would have felt as overwhelming. And then even when you have X-Pac coming out, that would have been still cool, because it's still like somebody that, obviously people are a big fan of, and people want to see somebody like that. People knew that he was obviously at the Hall of Fame. So I think, at some portion of people were probably expecting to see him, or maybe not, So I do think that they could have maybe just trimmed down a little bit of this to again give more time to the main event. But we do got a super chat here. This one is from Ace, who says, as someone old enough to live through ECW's entire existence, the show definitely had an ECW pay-per-view feel to it. Mark, do you want to add to what Ace just said here?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that there was definitely I mean, this match had, like I said, I think it was trying to kind of be one of those, like, ECW just overbooked mess where everyone's like, the entire roster is interfering in the same, in the same match. Not sure it quite hit those notes for me. ECW always had a sense of danger, when you're watching it. Like, you never knew what was going to happen, and you never knew, what horrible thing might happen. And at times there was that on this show, for better or for worse. So it was like, I don't want to say it was ECW light, because that's kind of insulting, because I don't feel that way. I mean, it's not. I enjoy ECW a lot. I watch it regularly. So I wouldn't say it's ECW light, but it does feel like a modern iteration of ECW in many ways to me.
I'll take that. Thank you so much to Ace for sending in that super chat. Once again, guys, if you want to get
this is from someone who used to record ECW when it was on at like 2 a.m. on MSG Network, living in Queens, growing up in Queens, trying to find out, looking at like the TV guy, like, when is ECW on? Oh, it's at 3 a.m. I got to like, you probably don't even know how to, you don't probably remember the days of trying to figure out how to program the damn VCR to record something at 2 a.m, Denise.
Well, not at 2 a.m, but I used to work a VCR.
Really? Okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure.
I was around.
Fair enough. I know that I'm considerably older than you, so I wasn't sure. But I remember those days of trying to program the VCR to watch freaking ECW, because that was like my stuff back in New York. I wanted to see that as much as I could, and it was hard. It was hard. I would I would miss the recording time, and like there would be like a Rangers game, like a Rangers replay or something on MSG Network. It was a mess. It was a mess. I was a kid. What can I say?
Yeah, I love it. I love this throwback, man. But yes, I know how to work a VCR, man. I can record anything you want me to record. If you give me a VCR, VHS, I could do it. But
I thought you were like 16 and for real, and I wasn't sure how old you were.
I wish, Mark. I wish. If I had my life this figured out at 16 years old, I'd be a very happy camper. But guys, just a friendly reminder as we continue on through the show, go ahead and send in your thoughts. If you want to make sure your comment, question, or statement gets read on the stream, you can send in a super chat. Not only that, but it really helps out the show. Thank you guys so much. Also, before I continue on, just a friendly reminder, everybody, that I am here live 3 times a week. This is a bonus show, but I'm also live on Tuesdays to chat NXT 2.0. I'm on here on Wednesdays to talk AEW Dynamite, and then I'm here Fridays to talk both SmackDown and AEW Rampage. Also, if you are new to F4W Online, please make sure that you guys click that subscribe button. We are on our way to 100,000 subscribers. We have surpassed that 83,000 mark. So please make sure that you guys go ahead and subscribe. But now let's continue on, because we still got so much more to talk about on this show. Mance Warner comes back. He's been out due to a leg injury. is coming out, addresses the crowd. Atticus Cogar comes out and he basically says, that he and 440 are the real outlaws of GCW. He gets into the ring. They get, face to face. Mance Warner tells him basically like, my doctor says I can't wrestle, but I think he said I could still, because I was kind of fuzzy, but he says something along the lines, but I can still like fight or something of like, he says, I can still fight like a bitch ass or something, and slaps him across the face. I don't remember, but they go at it. And then we see Matthew Justice comes out. Obviously, he comes out to help Mance Warner. Makes sense. We have more Atticus Cogar's guys coming out. And then the lights go down. And I'm thinking, given everything that we just saw, this kind of felt like a continuation, even though it was an entirely new thing. It felt like a continuation. So I'm wondering, who the hell is going to come out when the lights come back on? And they're down for a little bit, and then it's none other than Sabu. So Mark, how did you feel about this, especially kind of going off the fact that we got this immediately right after everything that went down with Matt Cardona and Joey Janela?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically an angle to get Sabu onto the show, and I was completely cool with that. And it does make sense in a certain way, because Matthew Justice, who has been Mance Warner's partner with the Second Gear crew, Justice has been coming out in some shows with Bill Alfonso. Recently, I saw them in Cleveland at AIW back in August together. So it did make sense to have Sabu come in that spot. Bill Alfonso was obviously the longtime manager of Sabu. Was hoping for like an RVD appearance. That would have been cool. To see,
dude,
or maybe
that would have been sick. That would have been so sick.
Like a Taz appearance at GCW would have been awesome. But yeah, I thought it was fine. Got Sabu on the show. Got Bill Alfonso out there. And also got Atticus Cogar on the show, which I was surprised he didn't have a match. I feel like he's a big part of GCW's future, especially like their deathmatch future. I think he's like one of the future guys in deathmatch wrestling. Probably because New York is not a big fan of blood and death matches on their shows in the state. Probably why Atticus was not actually in a match. But I was fine to have this angle out there to get those guys on the show. That was fine for me. And Mance was like he was hobbling along. Hopefully he gets better soon.
So we got a super chat from Ryan. Maybe you can answer this since you are a fellow New Yorker. So
yeah.
You are our New York experienced person here.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan says, are light tubes not allowed in Hammerstein / New York City ?
Well, blood is not allowed in New York because in New York, the New York State Athletic Commission still regulates pro wrestling as if it were a combat sport. Because look, it is a combat sport. This is pro wrestling. It's the real combat sport, the king of combat sports. But no, it's regulated the same way MMA would be or boxing would be. So there are rules in place that you cannot do certain things, and one of those things is blood. So you didn't see anybody blade. There was blood on a few occasions, but it was hard way. But there was no blading. It's a weird that it's a GCW show and there was very little blood, because usually these shows are, it can be a bloodbath, but that is a New York rule. And I mean, I think, and I'm not certain about this, but I've heard and read that, if there's blood and someone bladed, they'll stop the match, maybe even the entire event, because there were commission officials there ringside, as far as I know.
And there's no way to get around this, is there?
No. I remember in New Orleans a few years ago during WrestleMania weekend, the Louisiana Athletic Commission regulates pro wrestling as well. And there were like all these crazy rules, like no pile drivers. But I saw a lot of instances where they broke the rules. This was not the case. I think in New Orleans, they kind of took advantage of the fact that there was like 100 shows going on at one time. So there probably couldn't be a commission person at every show. But there were probably commission people in attendance at Hammerstein tonight.
Makes sense. Completely makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We also got another super chat from Eric Louise. Thank you so much to Eric. I didn't send in a message, but I really do thank you for sending in this super chat a whole lot. Thank you so much to Eric for sending that in. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. So right after this, we got the women's match, which is Allie Katch versus Ruby Soho. This was a pretty interesting match. I thought when the finish came, so I liked the finish, but I didn't know it was going to be the finish that's the one thing. So, we see this match, and essentially we get Ruby Soho. She's literally doing the, I don't know what she calls it, but I know Gail Kim calls it the eat the defeat, and she's kicking her on the head, etc. And so she ends up getting the win, Ruby Soho, during this match. And for me, I kind of didn't see it coming. I thought that, because obviously Allie Katch is like, GCW's girl.
Mhm.
I kind of thought that she would have this moment to actually get the win here. So I was a little bit surprised. And I think you felt it too in the audience, where the audience kind of, I almost feel like Ruby Soho, and I don't know, maybe I missed it, but I didn't really feel like she got the reaction that you might have expected had Ruby Soho won. And I think it's because a lot of people were like, oh, shoot, Allie Katch didn't win this match. And it kind of did feel like a little bit abrupt. Like you mentioned, sort of the timing of these matches. It wasn't my favorite match of the night. I don't think it was up there in terms of like matches that I really enjoyed, but I thought it was a nice moment to see both Ruby and Allie essentially, hugging it out, and then Ruby leaving the ring so that Allie Katch could get her, her moment with the GCW audience. How did you feel about this match?
Yeah, the match was fine. I completely agree with you. The ending did feel very abrupt, and I too thought that Allie would win the match because, like you said, she's kind of like the house. She's kind of like the house favorite, right? She's Ruby Soho was coming into Allie's house. The JCW is Allie's promotion, and I thought she would go over. She did not. I could see this being a part of her story. As her story continues on, they've done a good job telling Allie's story, and her character work has been really good. So I could see this being part of her story moving forward. The ending, it was the same move. It was I guess she called it the riot kick when she was in WWE, and it was the same move off like the second rope that she hit Nyla Rose with to win in AEW in the TBS tournament. So it was kind of like her super finisher in a way. So I even though I thought Allie was gonna kick out, I did acknowledge that was that's legit, like her like super finisher. So I'm fine with Allie not kicking out of that, but yeah, fine match. Thought Allie would go over, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt to see where the story with Allie goes next, because I'm win or lose, I'm still curious about Allie's journey as a character.
Yeah, exactly. I think they especially like the promo package that they also played beforehand, I thought was pretty cool too, just to kind of really paint a visual of who Allie Katch is, in GCW. And even during the pre-show when Brett Lauderdale was, talking to the audience on the pre-show, one of the names that he mentioned was obviously Allie Katch, basically calling her one of like the baddest women in wrestling, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that's obviously a big portion of her story and her journey and where she goes from here. But let's go ahead and hop into
Denise, sorry to interrupt you again, and this kind of speaks to the next match too, and I'll let you get into that. But I felt like the last two matches that we just talked about, Allie losing to Ruby and also Cardona going over Janela, I felt like those were matches that were, they were not the culmination. They were not the blow-off matches of like the stories for either any of these characters. And I think that there might have been people who expected this, the Wrld on GCW, Hammerstein Ballroom. It's the biggest show to date. I think a lot of people expected this to be like the WrestleMania, where the stories were going to culminate in every aspect at this show. That these were the big blow-off matches, but it did not turn out that way. For Janela and Cardona, I feel like that's going to extend. I could see that match, the tag match that we mentioned, happening possibly WrestleMania weekend. I could see Allie having another big match. Maybe it's even a rematch against Ruby Soho at WrestleMania weekend. So it didn't feel like these two matches were blow-offs necessarily for those programs. And I would say the same thing about the next match that you're about to also talk about.
See, it's weird because I didn't feel like that for the Ruby Allie Katch match. So I kind of felt opposite of you. I think once they had the moment of like, hey, we're hugging it out, good for you, I'm going to leave the ring. To me, it felt like, all right, this is it. This is settled. I don't feel like we're going to see it again necessarily, right?
Maybe not the rematch, but I don't think that was not to me a blow off or a culmination for the Allie Katch character. I feel like there is a lot more to come where she will have her moment. It just was not at this show. And that's okay. But I do think that a lot of people had that expectation that these were going to be satisfying finishes, like a WrestleMania, where, okay, this part of the story arc is over. It was a satisfying finish, and we're going to move on. It was more of like keeping those stories alive for something in the future. Not Allie's the story with Ruby, but Allie's story as a character. That's what I mean.
100%. Okay, I get you now. I think once you mentioned like more of the focus on Allie and her character and having like her big like
Yeah.
aha moment, like OMG,
Right.
I'm at the I'm at the top of the mountain, whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I completely get you. All right, so let's go into Effy versus Jeff Jarrett. I think that
Mhm.
this was one of the matches that a lot of people were. This was one of the matches that a lot of people were really looking forward to. Obviously, two very different wrestlers, but obviously, they're coming together with this feud. I love the fact that Jeff Jarrett's basically coming in here and saying that he's the original outlaw, in his promo that he did, mentions wrestling China and how people, 20 something years later still talk about it, etc. So let's kind of talk about this because this was pretty cool. Right off the bat, we see Jeff Jarrett in his entrance. One of my favorite parts what he did was when he choked Vladimir when he was coming out and doing his entrance. I thought that was really funny. And then also, like, even him just getting like introduced during this, like, I got to give a shout out to Emil. I thought he did an amazing job tonight. But I think it was more so when he was reading off like all the accolades of Jeff Jarrett in this introduction, and then you're like, holy shit, like this is happening. So I thought that was a really nice like moment. One of the things that obviously I thought was really good throughout this was just really how Jeff Jarrett was working this match and just doing like such a good job at like getting people to be so heavily invested in this. Like all of the chants that you were hearing, whether it was, Daddy likes it when Effy's being choked or choked with the belt, or if he's being whipped with the belt, you're hearing chants like that. You're hearing F you slap nuts chants. You're hearing some other chants that I don't feel like repeating. But you're hearing all of these like really funny, chants throughout this match. So for me, I love this mainly because I never expected to see Jeff Jarrett in this type of situation where, Effy's going in on him and, doing all the things that Effy does and kind of bringing in something that you just wouldn't have expected to see Jeff Jarrett in. So for me, I really liked that aspect of it. I love the usage of the belt, whether it was him choking him, whether it was him hitting him, both of them essentially hitting each other with the belt and all of that. For the finish, this was pretty cool because we do see Effy essentially hit him with a low blow, but then afterwards we see Jeff Jarrett hit him with the guitar. But here's the interesting part, like he hits him with the guitar, right? And his head is still in the guitar, hits the stroke, and gets the win there. And immediately after, you see that Effy's busted open. You see Jeff Jarrett is busted open. This was freaking cool. I thought the finish was really cool, and it felt like a big exclamation point. So, Mark, how did you feel about this match, etc., and about the finish?
This is one of my favorite matches on the show. Absolutely. I thought maybe it was my second favorite match on the show. It might have been the second best match after the Lucha Trios match. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Jeff Jarrett because I thought he told the story so well and so beautifully. And the match was paced correctly. It isn't like he did a lot. I mean, it isn't like, Jeff Jarrett is like doing frog splashes and like, tope suicidas, but what he did, everything he did felt meaningful. And he was really like whipping Effy with that belt. I mean, Effy's back was like bleeding, and like he had like welts on his back. Like you could see like the belt marks. It was pretty brutal. And I just thought that Jeff Jarrett told the story so well. I thought Effy did a great job in his role. It also the finish was good because, like you said, it wasn't just a chair shot, but he hit the stroke while Effy's head was still in the guitar. That was crazy, and it did real damage to Effy. Like you said, he was bleeding after. I enjoyed this match a lot, and like the last two matches, it feels like there is still more to come with this story because Jeff Jarrett did hit Allie with the guitar last weekend, and that hasn't really been resolved yet. We still don't really know the motives of this Jeff Jarrett character, but I will say this: Jeff Jarrett is 54 years old. This character, this new kind of reborn version of him, it's got to be the most interested I've been in Jeff Jarrett in a long time. I really have to say, I really think that he looked like he was in great shape. And I really am legitimately curious to see where all this goes, what it's leading to, what it all means. Hopefully it doesn't lead to a big match, WrestleMania weekend or really whenever. But yeah, I really enjoyed the match a lot. And I like to see more from both those guys.
Like story wise, it was there.
Mhm.
Just like overall, like what you were seeing both of these guys do, like everything that they did made sense to the
Yep.
story that they're telling. And so for me, this one also kind of feels like it does feel like this one is going to be a continuation rather than this is the
Mhm.
big blow off at the end. So I will have to say that this was definitely one of the highlights of the show. Definitely. So, guys, just a heads up, we are down to our last two final matches. But before we get to those two final matches, just a friendly reminder, if you want to get your comment, question, or statement read on the stream, you are more than welcome to send in a super chat. Also, I do want to go ahead and first of all, Marc, I want to thank you so much for saying yes to doing the show with me. I
Of course.
really appreciate it. Before we hop into the next two matches, can you please let the people know where they can follow you on social media, etc., all of that good stuff?
Sure. Twitter, it's Marc_Raimondi, Marc_RAIMONDI. And on Instagram, it is Marc Raimondi MMA at Marc Raimondi MMA on Instagram. So MarcRaimondi MMA for you Espanol speakers out there. My terrible Spanish.
I love it. I did post the link so you guys can go ahead and follow Marc Raimondi over in his Twitter and Instagram and all of that good stuff. The links are in the description box below, so make sure to give him some love. It's a huge thank you for coming on and being my guest here today. But now let's go ahead and
You can see my mentions when you go on my Twitter and see all the people who are miserable that I'm tweeting about wrestling and not MMA. That's always
shut up. Wait, so people
MMA
don't like it when you tweet about wrestling?
MMA fans get really upset when I tweet about wrestling. Really upset.
Oh, that sucks. And it sucks because I know you're such a big fan and
Yeah.
all of this. So it must
I
suck not to
gotta
be.
keep it to myself a lot of times, Denise. Otherwise, the masses get angry with me and they make
Damn
fun of
them.
me for being a wrestling fan at age 37.
So you get trolled by the MMA fans for being a
Hard,
wrestling fan?
hard. But you know what?
No.
They don't even realize that what they're watching as MMA fans is pro wrestling that culminates in a real fight. They don't even realize this, but it's true.
And there's so much crossover, you know? Like how many people haven't you seen crossover, etc.? Oh God. Oh, it's
They don't
brutal.
wanna
I'm
hear
sorry,
that.
Marc.
That's
Sorry to
fine.
hear that.
That's
Well,
fine.
if it makes you feel better, if I tweet anything MMA related, no one cares.
I'm
Which
sure that's not true. I've seen you at MMA events. I've seen you at some
yeah, but
or
there's a difference. There's a huge difference when
sure.
I talk about wrestling, when I talk about MMA. Huge difference.
Same.
So I get you, man. It happens. But let's go ahead and jump into Homicide versus Jon Moxley. Which when I found out this wasn't going to be the main event, I was like, oh shit, like. Where are we going? Because I thought this
Mhm.
was going to be the main event. Obviously,
Sure.
GCW World Championship on the line. This is a huge match. Homicide, Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley's, second match after just recently returning to AEW. But let's get into this. Before we start talking about the match, what did you think of the F Bully Ray chants that were going on during this? Because this is,
Oh.
to be honest, I didn't expect these chants. I mean, I think I just kind of had forgotten,
Yeah. But I mean, look, I mean, they make a good point. I mean, when they shared that, yes, the fact that he said that Moxley has to apologize to the fans
It's nuts.
because he was trying to better his life and make a positive change in his life for his family and young daughter. I mean, what I mean, are the fans really that entitled? I don't even think the fans feel like they're that entitled.
No.
As crazy as fans can be sometimes, like they think they actually know these athletes and these performers when they don't. I don't think anyone really expected that Moxley apologized. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I mean, he went through a difficult time. He worked his butt off. Look at the guy. He looks 10 years younger.
He does.
When I saw him on Dynamite this week, I was like, who is it? What the hell? Dude looks like, CZW Moxley from, 2000,
Yeah.
whatever. I could not believe he looked 10 years younger. He's in insane shape. I mean, yeah. I mean, the F Bully Ray chants. I mean, I probably would have chanted the same thing if I were there.
You're like, yeah, let's do it. No, but I completely like.
Now that should be GCW should book that program for WrestleMania weekend.
Oh, I'm already seeing comments here where people are basically saying they would want to see it. But that's the thing. Like, Marc, I don't know one person. I did not see one person saying Jon Moxley owes me an apology. Like,
No.
who the hell in their right mind? Like, I don't feel like I, as a fan, do not feel like I deserved an apology whatsoever. Yeah. Didn't even cross my mind. It's nuts. But anyways, I kind of had forgotten about the story is what I mean when I went into this. I forgot about the story. I was so invested in, what GCW was doing, the product. And then when the F Bully Ray chant started, I was like, oh shit. Yeah. And that's kind of funny. Anyways, but let's get into this. So this match was pretty, I thought it was okay. Like, it was pretty good. I didn't get like, I didn't freak out about it, but it was okay. Yeah. We see Homicide literally biting the ear of Moxley during this. We see a really awesome, tope con hilo from Homicide to Jon Moxley. That was
great
literally
catch by Moxley too.
Hell yeah. So fast, so sharp, and he got caught. Wins all right there. And one of the things that I feel that I really do need to put over for like a hot second here about Homicide is that he is really, as I was watching this, I started to think like, he really is those guys that can work any style of a match. Like, it doesn't matter who he's in the ring with, what kind of match he's supposed to be having. He really is that guy. And you really saw a little different shades of that throughout this entire match. For the win, we see Moxley hit the paradigm shift on the chair, gets the win, retains his championship. I thought this was a solid victory for Jon Moxley. How did you feel about this match?
Yeah, it was very solid. I felt like, and I don't know this to be true, but I felt like, when this match was drawn up, there was a plan to go longer. I thought there was a plan to make it a little bit more of a lengthier, more full match. I feel like this was also a finish that came slightly abruptly, although it was cool. The paradigm shift on the open chair, that was a pretty, a pretty cool visual. I thought both guys looked good. Homicide, man, the guy's just been doing it. I remember seeing Homicide like on indie shows at the Elks Lodge on Queens Boulevard in Elmhurst, Queens. God, I don't even know what year it was, but it was like way back in the day. Used to see like Amazing Red and like Xavier and like guys like that in Queens. These are all like New York guys. The SAT, like these are all guys that I kind of like grew up watching on the indies back then. So it was so cool to see Homicide in that spot. Cool to see him get inducted into the Indie Hall of Fame, and it was cool to see him go against Moxley. So I think overall it was real solid. I think both guys are probably capable of a better match, but this was no fault of their own. I felt like there was a time limitation and they had to go home a little bit earlier than they should have, but I enjoyed the match for what it was, certainly.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think had this match been a lot, had been given more time, it really would have been like a breakout match. Or not a breakout match, that's not the right word to use, but it would have been, a real standout of the night. And it's kind of a shame that we didn't, get to have that opportunity. But let's go ahead and hop into the main event because, unfortunately, I think that the main event left a lot to be desired. And that's just the honest truth. There was a lot to be desired there. So this was one of the matches that, again, a lot of people were really looking forward to. People were wondering like, who is going to answer the open challenge? And the second that this became the main event, I thought, all right, it's going to have to be somebody that is legitimately like a big deal. A team. I was thinking more a team. I'm like, okay, this team has to be a big deal. I know a lot of people expected it to be FTR or wanted it to be FTR. And I thought if it's FTR, I don't necessarily think it would be the main event. So I kind of wrote off FTR in my head and I started to think who would be like a big deal tag team, right? And I was thinking more of the lines of like, man, I was like, this is where my brain was going. I was like, what if it was a Young Bucks and this is going to be like an AEW GCW thing? Like that's how they're going to close it off, right? To get some like newsworthy buzz going on. And then I thought, what are the chances of it being the Hardy Boys? This is where my brain was going with all of this. And then finally, we're getting the introductions. And the second that Matt Tremont came out, I was like, all right, well, now we all know it's definitely going to be Nick Gage. And I thought, well, yeah, this makes a lot of sense considering that, Nick Gage is somebody that you were expect to be on the GCW card. Obviously, there's been, some of the storyline stuff where he hasn't necessarily been like, he's been doing a lot of promos and videos like that where he's kind of talking bad about GCW, etc. So the second that he came out, I thought, all right, this is going to be a freaking awesome match. This is going to be better than, people that were expecting Briscoe brothers and FTR, right? And I was like, this is going to be a bloodbath. And I wasn't thinking about no athletic state commission. I was like, I'm thinking blood. I'm thinking violence. This is what I'm going to get. I'm so ready for it. This match kicks off and we got a couple of moments where we're seeing chair shots. We're seeing, door shots where they're hitting each other back and forth with the door. And I didn't even want to write down more spots because I thought we were going to get more. And so then all of a sudden, I wrote down what happened in the beginning of this match. And then all of a sudden, I found myself writing the finish of this match. And we essentially saw, a pile driver through the door for the finish. And bam, we get brand new tag team champions, Matt Tremont and Nick Gage. And it was one of those moments where if you were watching, so closely during this match, when the referee did the 3 count, the 3 count didn't look, it didn't look like, it wasn't like a clear 1, 2, 3. It was like a 1, 2, and like a very soft lingering 3. I don't know if maybe I'm overreacting, but I kind of felt like at first I was like, was that a botch? Like, was that not supposed to be the finish? Like, what is happening here? Because it just felt so abrupt. And then that's when I finally looked at the clock and thought, okay, this was a time issue. Like, it wasn't a botch, it was a time issue thing. But that being said, I did feel like the main event left a lot to be desired. So, Mark, how did you feel about this?
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I think to your point, I thought the same thing because I believe the guy who took the Gage pile driver through the table from the second rope and the choke bomb on the knee. I think that was Mark. And I think Jay was coming in to break it up. So it looked like he got there in time to break it up, but the referee counted 3 anyway. But I was thinking all along that they were probably up against it as far as the time goes. I think there was one match early on where you could even hear them, "Hey, we got to go home." Like one of the earlier matches.
It was the Matt Cardona match.
Yeah. I mean, I think that match certainly ate up a lot of time. So I mean, it was disappointing. But I didn't. So the main event was Nick Gage coming out. That was the main event. That was really the main event. It wasn't even the match. It was the fact that Nick Gage came out. And as soon as Moxley and Homicide went on second to last, that the Briscoes were going to go on against, a mystery tag team, I had a really good feeling that it was going to be Nick Gage. I felt like it was almost certainly going to be Nick Gage because what else for that crowd, who else could it have been? So that was really the main event, just seeing Gage back. On top of that, Denise, I really think, and I don't know this to be true, but I saw Nick Gage against Minoru Suzuki back in October in LA. I believe you were at that card as well, a GCW card. I feel like Nick Gage can't work a whole match right now. I don't get the impression that he's in a position where he can work like a lengthy real match. I don't know that to be true, but it looks like he's injured. He took the time off after that match, so I thought maybe he was healing up injuries. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but he came out. He looked pretty out of shape. He looked like he looks fat. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's okay. I mean, you can still work a good match with that, but it just didn't seem like there was a time a few years ago when he first came back where he looked like he was in amazing shape and he was having these really good death matches and even good matches that were not death matches. Like there was a match in LA against Jake Atlas that was really good. That wasn't a death match at all. It was just Nick Gage straight up in a good match. I'm not sure if he is ready for that right now. I know he's had some injury trouble, so that was also running through my mind. Like maybe Gage can't really, work a whole match now. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the feeling that I got. Would also explain why he hasn't been around the last few months. Hopefully it's just that, and it's not something more serious because we know, with Nick Gage's history that he's had some addiction issues and stuff like that. So, best wishes. He's one of my favorite guys, to watch. So I hope everything is good with him and looking forward to seeing what happens with Gage and Tremont as the tag team champions. But yeah, it really wasn't a match. I mean, it was kind of like an extended angle. That Gage came out and they also had to wrap up the show with everyone in the ring and Gage cutting the promo. So they were pressed for time on both ends. They had to get the match done so they could do the whole, post match, promo from Gage. Wasn't the greatest. I'm sure that if they could do it over again, they would try to trim some of the stuff earlier in the show and give it a little bit more time. But hey, these things happen in live events. It's not easy to do.
Oh, trust me, they do happen. So I get what you mean. Also, I want to agree with you on the point where you said that you kind of felt like just Nick Gage coming out and being, a part of this was really the main event, like the big moment, etc. So I get what you mean by that. I think that just because, people were so pumped to see like, hey, like who's this, we're expecting, this great match because it's going to be the main event and it's the Briscoes. And you got, this death match legend with Matt Tremont. And then you got Nick Gage, who's, absolutely, who's Nick Gage for a reason. So I think that people were really just expecting something different for that main event. But in hindsight, like when you look about it, like I can't argue the fact where you say that, the big deal was really just Nick Gage coming in and, returning, etc. Also, the thing I do want to talk about also, like, it's funny when the finish happened and then all of a sudden you get all the guys out there. They got out there really fast. Like it was like I blinked and all these guys are out there. So kudos to them to get it out there so fast and, cutting this. Like I didn't even get to really hear what Nick Gage said because I think I was so in the moment of, oh shit, like this really just went down. And like right away I was like trying to figure out like, what the hell is going on here, et cetera, et cetera. And then, hey, it's showtime. But, Nick Gage just pretty much came out here cutting a speech talking about, GCW, et cetera. So, I mean, yeah.
He said he had to get like his mind, body, and soul right, something like that over the last few months. And then he just, did the whole, his spiel, MDK and whatnot.
So it was one of those things where I was like, oh man, like what an interesting way. But overall, I would say that I think that this show kind of feels like the craziest show so far of 2022. And obviously I know we're just in the first, month of the, we're really at the start of the year and there's still so many more shows to come. But I just think because we got so many different ingredients in this show, it feels really, really crazy to me. So it is going to be interesting to see how they follow up this show, such a huge show that had a lot of eyes. They were literally trending in the top 10 the entire night. I think at one point they said they got to number 4, which was our number 3, something like that, which is very high. So it is going to be interesting to see how they follow up this show and what they do, in the future. But definitely match of the night was that Lucha match. Really like that. A lot of, I just feel like this show was pretty news heavy, I think, with just everything that happened and all the appearances that you saw. I was very happy to see, X-Pac back. Definitely a highlight of the show. So Mark, any closing thoughts before we go ahead and head out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to also point out that, GCW is really, this is not a corporate backed, wrestling promotion. It's really just, Brett Lauderdale and company who are putting on these shows. So for them to even run this show at the Hammerstein Ballroom, to set the attendance record there for a wrestling show, to be on, regular terrestrial pay-per-view in addition to the Fight TV, the show itself was just an accomplishment. Just even getting in the door, selling out so quickly. They could have put on absolute, stinker after stinker, and it still would have been, in my mind, an accomplishment for that promotion. Again, this is not, there are no billionaires, behind the scenes at GCW. It very much is a grassroots wrestling promotion. That's one of the reasons why I think it has that cult, it's a cult favorite among fans, kind of like ECW. I see it as kind of like the modern successor to ECW in many ways. And that kind of, played into tonight's stories and, being at Hammerstein where, ECW had so many important shows, and where Ring of Honor had some shows as well. I think it's a success. Again, even without, maybe the show itself could have been better, but just having the show itself, just the fact the show existed and happened, I think it's a huge success. And I think GCW is one of the hottest promotions in the world. I think that it's one of the best booked promotions in the world, and I always believe that the workers just absolutely, bust their tails. I mean, they absolutely go all out. Even on the smallest shows in front of 75 people. Although those days of GCW seem to be kind of going away, right? They're playing to bigger and bigger crowds now. Hope that continues. Looking forward to WrestleMania weekend and whatever else they have next. LA next month, right?
Yeah, shot caller weekend. 3 shows, including 3 shows. Yeah. 3 shows, Allie Fight, and then they have the 2 GCW shows, I think, Friday and Saturday. So it'll be literally back to back. So it's going to be definitely a busy weekend, that's for sure.
Shot caller weekend, right? They're calling
it. Shot caller weekend's what they're calling it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for doing the show with me. I really just appreciate you taking the time to do this show with me. I know you're a big fan, so it's very nice to kind of have you out here chatting wrestling, etc. Because usually we just chat at the GCW shows. We usually get to chat for a couple of minutes, and it's like, bye, got to go to work, you know? So we don't get to talk too often about this, but I want to thank you so much, chat, and everybody listening and watching the show, whether you're watching live, watching the replay, or listening to the audio version. I want to thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. Without you guys, I would not be able to be on here and do these shows. I really hope you appreciated this bonus show. I really do. And I hope to see you guys on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays here right after NXT, AEW, SmackDown, and Rampage. And last but not least, please make sure to give Marc Raimondi some love. Links in the description box. Subscribe to F4W Online, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.